conclusions that maybe we wasn't expecting or anticipating going into the fight, or going into the night, let's say. And obviously, let's kick off with the main event. Of course, Islam Makhachev defeated Charles Oliveira to become the lightweight champion, undisputed, of course. Did it in emphatic fashion inside 2 rounds, submitting him in the second round via arm triangle. And, he set a statement down to the UFC lightweight division now. Going into the fight, of course, there was a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of apprehension as to did Islam Makhachev deserve the title shot at the time. He hadn't or hasn't beaten anyone in the top 10 going into the fight. Of course, Oliveira was on the back of the wins against Chandler, Poirier and Gaethje, 3 finishes since becoming champion. So it shows that, when you put the resumes on paper, Oliveira was a standout candidate because of who he'd been up against. So for me, I was looking at Oliveira and having, counted Oliveira out on multiple occasions in the past. I backed the guy because I thought, he's a stronger competitor. He's got a slightly stronger resume. And, Makhachev hasn't been on the big nights or the big stages before. But he proved us all wrong. Similar to Khabib, his coach and his training partner and his brother-in-arms, they showed that you don't need to fight the top of the top when you are the best in the division. You prove it, you earn it, and then everyone else follows along. And Islam Makhachev did that on Saturday. He showed that he's one of the best in the world, the best in the world at his weight class. And I was surprised with how the fight went down. At least watching it live, I thought Charles Oliveira would offer a little bit more. I thought these two guys are similar competitors in the sort of statistics or the characteristics of their styles, albeit trained completely different separately and having learned and crafted their skills in completely different areas of the globe. Islam Makhachev, known for his wrestling, known for his striking, a strong stand-up, or a much stronger stand-up game than what Khabib possessed at the time that he became champion, at least. And of course, we know what Charles Oliveira can bring. Fantastic jiu-jitsu. Most submissions in the UFC history. Coming off the back of 3 finishes. He can stand up, he can take you down, he's comfortable in both areas. And that was Islam Makhachev. And for me, that's where the fight broke down. Because we were coming in with Charles Oliveira with not a false confidence, but he'd defeated strikers predominantly. Obviously, Makhachev does have a bit of the wrestling background, but he predominantly stands on the feet. And as does Gaethje and Poirier. They're both much more comfortable on the feet than they are grappling. Yes, they have grappling capabilities and attributes, but their bread and butter is standing up and throwing punches and kicks. To simplify it too much a little bit. So of course, when Charles Oliveira gets knocked down by Poirier, Chandler, and Gaethje, he feels more comfortable because those competitors don't want to be rushing into the guard of Charles Oliveira. They don't want to be going into that world. They want to keep it standing up. But of course, sometimes ego, sometimes the atmosphere, the energy in the arena, of course, takes the fight to the ground naturally. And obviously, fighters do sort of follow their competitors into that world. And of course, at least Gaethje, Gaethje was sort of dragged into that world. Poirier was found there in the 3rd round when he lost to Charles Oliveira, and of course Chandler, worked his way out of the guard of Charles Oliveira when Charles Oliveira, had his back in that 1st round, but of course he got finished in the 2nd round. But Islam Makhachev, with the Sambo wrestling credentials that he had, he wasn't afraid to follow in with Charles Oliveira, and that's what happened in the 2nd round. In the 1st round, Makhachev dominated. He took the fight down, and it was almost like watching a Khabib fight. Put him up against the cage, pressuring him and dominating him for the first, I think it was about 3-4 minutes really. Of course, the fight started standing up, and there was about a minute and a half, which also Islam Makhachev was winning that engagement on the feet as well. He was first to punch. He had a bit of a stronger snap to his punch than Charles Oliveira, and of course, in the 2nd, he knocked him down and, of course, jumped straight in there and got an arm triangle in spectacular fashion. Really quickly got a hold of it and quickly got the tap as well. Of course, a lot of pressure on the arm triangle, and it shows the strength. For Charles Oliveira, obviously a little bit disappointing for him having to lost the belt. It'd be interesting to see. He was walking into enemy territory pretty much in Abu Dhabi, with a lot of the fans on Makhachev's side. So it was walking into a lion's den, and he did look a little bit rusty, a little bit, not despondent, but a little bit slower, a little bit. It was almost like he was a second behind us on Makhachev for the whole fight, and it really showed. And Makhachev capitalized on it, and he became champion, got his arm raised, and he's now the top of the division. Of course, going into this, the belt was vacant, and Makhachev took his moment and shone with it, and then he shone with it in the Octagon interview as well with DC, calling out Alex Volkanovski. Now we know Alex Volkanovski was the backup fighter for Saturday, had either one missed weight or been ineligible to fight due to an injury or some sort of freak incident on Saturday. And I think Volkanovski's got his work cut out for him. I think, personally, obviously going into the weekend, it was Alex Volkanovski pound for pound king and Charles Oliveira number 2. And that fight was, mouth-watering. I think those two are closer together, albeit I think Charles Oliveira is naturally a bit bigger than Alex Volkanovski and possesses a little bit more strengths on the ground. Brian Ortega almost caught Alex Volkanovski in the guillotine, of course, and you had 15 pounds or 10 pounds of that, 15 pounds on fight night perhaps, and the guy with the most submissions in UFC history, I think he finishes that fight. Of course, both of them are excellent on the feet, so that would have been an interesting battle. And of course, Alex Volkanovski, he's represented for the short guys, but he does have a shorter frame, slightly shorter distance, I believe, in reach. And I think Islam Makhachev is a very, very testing opponent for him. And one that I'd be worried about. I don't know what Makhachev walks around at and cuts down to, but I'd imagine he's somewhere in the 175s, maybe the 180s, and then probably cuts down from 170, 165 overnight for the weigh-ins. Whereas Volkanovski, I'd imagine he's probably 165, 170, maybe 180. But of course, he's got to drain himself 10 pounds further, of course. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Of course, it's going to be, or likely going to be in Perth in Australia. But I think, as we saw at the weekend, and rightfully so, is that Makhachev will be the heavy favourite. And that scares me because I like Alex Volkanovski. I was liking the idea of Volkanovski versus Oliveira. But that Makhachev matchup, it's a rough one. But also, there isn't too many names in the lightweight division that make sense right now. Of course, we've got to see what happens between Poirier and Chandler, but both of them have recently had opportunities. We've got Gaethje returning next year, but again, coming off the back of the loss, a title loss to Oliveira, you can't just throw him back in there. And, he lost to Khabib quite convincingly, as did Poirier. I wouldn't imagine fights going much different with Islam Makhachev, with all due respect to both Poirier and Gaethje. And of course, Beneil Dariush had a good win, which we'll cover later on. But again, he would be the notable candidate right now, because obviously those two have had fights cancelled in the past. And Beneil Dariush, he deserves a title shot for his work recently. And there's enough needle there to book that fight because of their past with fights being chalked off. But Alex Volkanovski has the right to go for legacy also. He's cleaned out his division pretty much. He's got Calvin Kattar and Arnold Allen fighting this weekend. He's beat Max Holloway 3 times. He's beat Brian Ortega. He beat Korean Zombie. We're looking at seeing what's happened between Josh Emmett and Yair Rodriguez. Both of them coming off of legitimate wins, but not convincing wins. Josh Emmett winning split decision against Calvin Kattar. And of course, Yair defeating Brian Ortega. Although Ortega, popped his shoulder out back in August or July it was. So there's room there for Volkanovski to move up to 155. And I think he's got a big task on his hand. He is someone who, you wouldn't want to bet against. But when you're up in the cage with Islam Makhachev, he's certainly, Makhachev's also someone you don't want to be betting against right now. And I like the fight. It is something on both sides potentially being lost. It's pound for pound king versus lightweight champion. One's got the title for the division. One's got the the crown for the men's roster, and that's a dangerous ball game. It's a good marketing tool, and since Conor McGregor became a two-time champion, that sort of champ status is something that fans and legacy is a part of now. It's something important for the resume. If you've got two belts in two separate divisions at the same time, it rises your stock tenfold. But again, similar to Saturday night, I would expect or predict that Makhachev beats Alex Volkanovski, and that's not something I want to see right now. But of course, big props to Makhachev. Let's now look quickly at the results. Of course, 25 strikes landed out of 46 from Charles Oliveira, 72 out of 86 from Makhachev, 30 out of 41 significant out of those 72 out of 86, 19 significant strikes there from the former champ. 0 out of 1 takedowns. Obviously, Makhachev got 2 out of 3, and a 5-minute control time, which was predominantly in that first round. Let's not forget. And he did get the submission in round 2, 3 minutes and 16 into the round. So, I think Charles Oliveira, what's next for him, I think will be Beneil Dariush. He wants to get back in there, probably in Brazil. I'd personally put it on the Perth card. It's a little bit of a co-main event, perhaps. Maybe put Beneil that time as the backup for Makhachev and Alex Volkanovski. Give him his reward for losing out this weekend, and see where the division goes. But obviously, Oliveira wants to fight in Brazil. I think it might be a little bit too soon for him, but maybe that loss will inspire him on to want to come back and fight in his hometown, especially having just gone to fight in Abu Dhabi in a crowd that was quite entirely against him. But we move on to the